All right, welcome everyone to the Mitch and Maeli live call. We have some awesome stuff for you today. We're going to be talking about seller financing, which I think is the acquisition strategy of the year. We're in this unique spot where, since 2016, people are getting, from 2016 to 2022, people are getting mortgages at 2.9%, 3%, 3.5%. And if only we had a time machine to go back and buy some real estate back in those years, right? I mean, how awesome would that be? Well, great news. We're going to be equipping you with your time machine today. The beautiful, lovely, amazing Maylee is going to be teaching us how to take advantage of some of those mortgages that the people got, back in the day. To add to that soup, that's not been been happening since mid 2022 till today. We know that mortgages today are 8-9%. So, how do we go back and take advantage of that stuff back in the past? Well, the secret is seller financing and subject to. And, we are in a unique position where I think because of the forbearances ending and people not being able to catch up on their payments, there's people out there that need our help as real estate investors. And as you know, as real estate investors, we are problem solvers. So that is the topic for the day. We're going to jump into that in just a second here, but we do have some announcements for you. So we are going to be, we're back here next week at, every Wednesday, 7 p.m., same link. Feel free to join us. We will be taking the week between Christmas and New Year's, so the 28th of December. We will be taking that day off. So there is no call, no Mitch and Maeli live on the 28th, but we will start right back up on the 3rd and every Wednesday after that for the foreseeable future. So make sure you've got it marked on your calendars, set it on repeat, put an alarm in there so you don't forget to jump on. We want you here, and we've got some awesome value to share with you. So,
Oh,
other
don't forget
now,
about next week too for announcements. Sorry, who's
yeah,
coming on?
yeah. So next week we have the incredible Jeff Griffin joining us. Jeff is a motivational speaker. He's been through some stuff in his life, man. He's guy's confined to a wheelchair, and you know what? He's decided to take that part of his life and turn it into some inspirational stuff for us. So we're gonna have Jeff Griffin on next week to talk about mindset to go out and achieve your dreams. You're not gonna want to miss it. So mark your calendars. You're gonna want to be there. And then this Friday, if you are in the Utah area or you're gonna be in the Salt Lake City area on Friday, we have Bridger Pennington coming into the Renata studio to film his class on how to start a private equity fund so that you can go out and buy millions of dollars worth of real estate using other people's money. So you're not going to want to miss that. If you're in the Utah area, reach out to us. It's by invite only, so you're going to need some of the big guns, some of Maylee's big guns here to get registered for that. So make sure you reach out to us, but we want you to be there. So if you want to be part of that studio audience and you're in the Salt Lake area on Friday, that's going on from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's a full day class. And for those Renata students out there, it's going to be added to your education. If you already own your Renata's education and you're all in, it's not going to cost you anything more. It's just going to show up one day. So that's going to be awesome. But being a part of the studio audience, it takes them a good month, 2 months to edit these things down and get them get the workbooks prepared and all the things they need to do to make it a class to put on their education. We get that information 2 months before everybody else does. So that's going to be awesome. You're going to want to be a part of that. And then tomorrow, we have our in-person mastermind training that's going to be on taxes. We've got a guest speaker coming in. We're going to talk about tax strategies and how to take advantage of that as a business owner and a real estate investor, which all of you are or are aspiring to become, and you're in the right place for that. With that said, and without further ado, Mail Girl, you take it away. You got some awesome stuff for us tonight. I'm excited to hear. I'm excited to learn. Teach
Yeah,
me,
very good.
Sensei.
So fun. I will just edify tomorrow night. So our mastermind is going to be around taxes. And part of the reason why we chose the last, 2 weeks of December for tax planning, it's because it's the most crucial time to start tax planning. And so many of us just go, oh, well, taxes aren't due until just like January. The problem is to amend your taxes for this year is a lot of effort, right? And so if you could just implement those things before the end of the year, you'd be so much better off. And so I highly encourage you to come and hang out with us. And it's going to be Charlotte Peterson that will be joining us on Thursday, tomorrow night. So come hang, so while Mitch is teaching his epic presentation, we'll be in our back studio and chit-chatting about taxes. So come and hang out. That's what we're going to be doing. And then Bridger also, I mean, on Friday, like we'll be there. Like this is going to be an amazing opportunity. People spend $30,000 for his education. So that's crazy. And
We
then
did.
with Jeff,
We spent
huh?
30,000 on it.
Yeah, I know. We spent thirty
Yeah,
thousand
and then we're
dollars.
like, "Hey Bob," actually it was us. We're like, "Hey Bob, this is good stuff. You should probably incorporate this into Renatus."
Yeah, bring this over. And he was like, oh, okay, cool. And so he obviously did his due diligence and that. But and then Jeff is going to be with us next Wednesday on this call. I cannot, I mean, he charges between $5,000 and $10,000 for an hour keynote speaking fee. Like that is his level of quality. He is such an incredible human. He is doing this call because he just loves us and he loves what we're doing and he loves the mission that we're striving for, and he wants to help you all achieve those things. And he knows that it's just this BS that we talk about and how we have structured our brains while we're not achieving our full potential. And he wants everyone to be successful. And that makes me so happy, because what better person to come and talk to us before we start the new year, right? And to really, so that over our Christmas break, we can actually settle in and sit into our new person that is going to be this new iconic self for the new year. I love this idea. And I'm very excited to do his workshop. I've been dying to see one of his live in person like this. So I'm so excited. All right, we're going to talk about seller finance tonight. That is why we are here. So we've had a lot of people, right, watch our how to create a REPC class on here. And so a REPC is a real estate purchase contract. And a lot of people, and it's nice. We honestly, if there's questions that keep coming up over and over, that's what we do these calls on. Because for multiple reasons. One, you as a student or as a mentor or whatever, if you have that question, we can essentially grab that video and be like, oh, cool, it's recorded. It drops on YouTube. But then like 2 minutes after this recording, it goes live on YouTube. So you can rewatch this class as many times as you want to. I love that, right? Baby steps walks you through each step of the way. So we about a month and a half ago, we did a video on how to write a real estate purchase contract. So how do you buy a property, right? That's how you buy a property, is with that real estate purchase contract form. Do you have to be an agent? The answer is no. You do not need to be a real estate agent. Okay. Anyone can fill out a real estate purchase contract. Can you have your own real estate purchase contract? If an attorney has drafted one up for you and it looks super sexy and you're like, yes, this is for me, then cool. You get to use that if you're not a agent. If you're a real estate agent and you're licensed in Utah, you absolutely 1000% have got to use the real estate purchase contract. Hopefully that clears up a lot of confusion, that I get a lot of chatter, every week since we've dropped that class. That's been a lot of the confusion. So hopefully that spells and clears up that confusion.
I'm going to drop the replay link in the chat here momentarily for that
Yes.
Mitch Maeli
Yes.
live recording you were talking about.
Perfect. That is brilliant. And then realistically, we should do part 2. So when this drops, Mitch, we really should do real estate purchase contract, right? Seller finance addendum part 2, because that's kind of the biggest issue, is that we went through the entire real estate purchase contract, but then we left it. We didn't have enough time on the show. And so we dropped it there and didn't help you fill out then the rest of the addendum, which is the real estate purchase contract, seller finance addendum, and that left a lot of you hanging. So that's on us. We're here to fix this. This is why we're here. And that's where we'll just dive right on in. So one of our students, Michelle Paskett and Ryan Paskett, bad A's. I'm so proud of them. They got on their first deal, like I guess it was 3 months ago now. They have done so many incredible things. And one of the things, they purchased a deal from one of our other students, Jared Brenchley. And so I love when like our network just kind of feeds each other, right? Like that's my favorite part of what we do, is that we can be a part of something way bigger than ourselves. Because that's not why we do this, right? We do this so that all of you can be intertwined and be super successful together. So let's go over where is the, hey, Amelia, pleasure talking with you today. Look forward to, where's the link? Or, oh, there we go. I'm like, where is this? So we're going to go over this. I asked Michelle, obviously, if I could go over this with everyone. So this is not something that, this is not a secret. This is just simply an exact deal that we're dealing with right this second. I got this offer yesterday. We would have already signed on this, but we have some problems, and that's why we wanted to talk about this and talk through strategy and get your guys' opinion on this. We have a lot of really cool seasoned investors on these calls, and we also have brand new students, and that's what's so fun, why we love these Zoom calls and why we still do them. Everybody's like, that's a lot of commitment. I can't believe you guys do this literally every single Wednesday. It's like, yeah, except for we freaking love this. Like, we love the banter. And so please come off of mute at any time if you're there, or if you're on YouTube right now and you're like, oh, I am like hearing this right now, and you're feeling like this is resonating with you, please chime in. Or you're like, I have a question at any point. This is definitely not like me just rambling off a bunch of stuff, because it will feel like that unless you engage and unless you ask some questions. So at any time, please chime in and be like, I don't get what you're talking about. That's totally fine. Okay. All right. So hopefully my mouse doesn't die while we're going through this. It is struggling. So, well, who knew you had to charge your mouse? Okay, I did, but I just forget to. Okay, real estate purchase contract. That's what this is. Real estate purchase contract. It is long nowadays, right? It's 6 pages. You don't have to. If you have a real estate purchase contract that's not, written by and governed by the Utah Board of Realtors, and it's signed off by a good lawyer that you really like, and it's 2 pages, cool on you. I can't personally use it because I'm a real estate agent. So I'm going to give you an example of what most people use, I would think, in the state of Utah, but also in all states. You're going to have a governing contract, a REPC for your state, and that is how you write an offer. They look a little different, but really not. I can go to almost any state and fill out a REPC if I know the basics, and I've done this obviously plenty. So knowing the basics allows you to fill out most of this. Okay. So I'm going to briefly go through this only for the sake to understand the seller finance addendum, because we've already gone over the seller purchase contract, right? Not this one. So that's where we're going to briefly go over it. So they are getting a offer for $435, which is exactly what it's listed for. Solid. They are getting $4,000 earnest money. Don't love that, but whatever. Also, kind of doesn't matter. It closes in 2 weeks. So does it really matter that they're putting a ton down? Not really. They're trying to close this before December, before the end of December. Actually, before Christmas. How cute. Wouldn't that be nice? A home by Christmas. Seller financing. So this is where it gets clever, right? So because it's $4,000, right? Earnest money, that's where this will dictate. And then $35,000 the purchase price and cash at settlement. So they're bringing $35,000 to the table as they're down, right? And then they will be financing the $396. Okay. All looks fantastic. They did a good job. Everything else, this is pretty standard, right? The agent, Tyler's the agent on this side. He did a good job filling all of this out. It is based on due diligence. That's fine. As it should be. I presented this on the open market. I didn't put this as a wholesale deal for any reason. I did list this though, however, as only seller financing terms. I can show you the listing if that's helpful, if anybody wants to see what that would look like. Home warranty, the answer is yes. I always think that that's a good idea to do a home warranty. It has gone up $100 in the last, year. It used to be $600, now it's $700 for a decent one, but it looks like the buyer is actually buying it. On the counter, if we're going to do a counter, which we actually do have to do a counter on this property, we might flip that around and have Michelle pay for that. And part of the reason why we do that, and you get to choose, and Michelle gets to choose what she wants to do, but we want that security. We want the judge to know if there was ever a lawsuit, if there was ever a problem for any reason, we want them to know that we did everything we possibly could to ensure that we did our part, that we were in good faith, right? That we didn't know that there would be something that went down, like that got broken. And if it did break, we were still trying to cover it, right? We didn't try and hide anything. We weren't trying to not fix something intentionally. Okay. This is where the deadlines are. December 15th, 2023. Due diligence. Do you have any questions about what due diligence means? Can we move on from
Hey,
that?
Maeli.
Yeah.
So I only noticed this because of Scott's comment. We can only see your email inbox. We're not seeing the Repsy. You're gonna have to reshare your screen.
Well, that would be nice for me.
I'm sorry. I'm like, I was just listening to you, and I'm like, yeah, agreeing with everything you said. And Scott's like, am I the only one not seeing the Repsy?
Thank you, Scott,
Yeah, thank you,
for
Scott.
sharing this
Feel free. If
information.
there's something like that, guys, just come off mute and let us know.
Yeah, tell me to shut the freak up. That's
I love it.
how about that?
Oh, there we go. We can see it now.
Now I
Oh,
can see it.
Yeah.
I can see it now. Hooray.
wow. I could probably go back and have you look at this stuff. You're like, why am I still looking at this stupid email? My bad. Okay, so if we are looking at deadlines is where we're at. Does anybody not know what due diligence is? Does everyone feel at least comfortable knowing what that is? We're good to move on? Okay, so they've given us till December 20th, and then they're going to actually close on December 21st. Love that. That's exactly how I would have written this up. They actually have before we even accept it. I love how aggressive Tyler is. I've worked with Tyler before as an agent, so I just love him. But he actually scheduled the inspection before we signed this contract. It's still not signed. And he scheduled tomorrow at 5:00 the inspection. Like, Tyler, you're pretty aggressive here. We haven't even, I have 3 other offers, and he's like, oh yeah, I know we're doing this. I'm like, oh, that's a lot of confidence. Awesome. I love how he does business. This looks good to me. And then this is my favorite part. So before we move on though to the seller finance addendum, do we have any questions on the traditional Repsy, since, well, half the time you didn't even see it? Any questions? Going once, going twice. Okay, moving right along. I'm just gonna make this the primary then. This is the reason for this call. This is the reason for going over the Zoom call, because you obviously can go back and re-watch. We spent an hour and a half just going over the Utah real estate Repsy, and there's so many similarities, especially Nevada, Idaho, Colorado, those, and California is its own thing. But
And the link is in the chat for that recording if you haven't watched that yet.
And you're gonna want to. If you also don't have my workbook that we just created, it's a 90-day challenge essentially to get into your first real estate deal. I highly recommend looking at that and going, okay, if I just follow these steps, I will be in a deal. The 80th day that you're in the program, the 80th to the 90th day, you're writing a Repsy, a real estate purchase contract, every single day. Every single day, you're going to be writing one in those 90 days. And obviously you can be doing it before if you know how. And well, we just showed you, if you watch this class, you're going to know how. I highly recommend getting very familiar with writing offers, because who cares if they say no? Who cares? It's giving you practice. It's putting in the repetition. It's putting in the right, efforts to really put something into motion. We have a few students, Allie, who just went under contract on a wholesale deal. Super proud of her. And that's all she did. She just kept making offers. And finally, one of them said yes. And she's like, man, one of them won a contract. It's like, sweet. And so we helped her blast out the deal. If you didn't receive the email, also put your email in chat. And then Mitch, will you grab those emails? If you didn't receive the email and you want to start receiving all of our student emails, if there's a deal that we have that you can participate in as a whatever, if you just want to buy the deal, I should say, and buy the wholesale deal, you'll want to be part of all those email threads. So feel free to put your information in the chat, and then we will add you to the list. it's coming from Maeli Real Estate Team, just so you know, that's where it's coming from. So don't make me a spam or go in there and highlight that I'm not a spam. All right, hopefully that gave you enough time to maybe look through this. I really like this addendum. Now, Jax Petty is the one who actually created this. He's also the lawyer who created our addendum as real estate agents in our normal board of realtors. If you go to the drop down menu inside of the MLS, that's where you would find the traditional seller finance reps. And if we have time tonight, we'll go through both just so you can see them and compare and contrast what you do and do not like about this one versus maybe the one that's standardized. This one, you're going to find a lot more attention to detail on just all the little tiny arenas that could go south in a seller finance deal. Let's burn through this. Property address, there it is. Property Amber Smith, right, referred to as buyer, hereafter refers to the seller, refers to as the party agrees to convene with the following terms and agreements. Contract. This seller financing addendum, SFA, hereby modifies the certain real estate purchase contract, the REPC, dated at the terms of the SFA is hereby incorporated as part of the REPC. If there is a conflict between the REPC and the SFA or another seller financing addendum previously executed, the terms of the SFA shall be suspended or supersede, and govern those terms. So it's very important that this last document supersedes everything and anything that you've done before. Keep that in mind. So if you're looking at a seller finance deal and you've looked at this REPC and you're like, oh yeah, this is 435, cool, earnest money, cool, like down payment, everything looks good. Okay, no, that this guy here governs and dictates exactly how this is all title is going to look at. They're going to look at the REPC just to look at it, really. But at the end of the day, this guy right here, this is what's going to be executed on the day of closing and supersede all other documents, right? And will be in the loop for the next however many years we dictated. In this case, it's going to be 9 years. Okay, moving right along. Contract. No, we'll go to credit. Document to be used. The extension of the contract from seller to buyer shall be in the form of note and all-inclusive deed of trust. This is where we actually had some problems. So Mitch, feel free to, chime in here. So we didn't sign this, and we can burn through this first, because honestly, the way Tyler wrote this was perfect. Like, I couldn't have asked for him to write this any better. And he was like, oh, thank you. But I'm being serious. Like, he did a fantastic job. I'm usually having to slap agents all the time. Like, that's not how you do it. This isn't how you fill it out. Like, rewrite it. Like, anyway. Let's
tackle this now while we're on it. But go ahead and finish your thought, and then I'm happy to pipe in.
Yeah. So this was the issue that we ran into. We're working with, our title company. We're working with our lawyer, Jeff Brailio. And then, we are looking at this contract and we're going, ooh, this would be totally normal if this was not a double-sided subject to deal. Meaning, the person who bought this property originally on a subject to, okay, just to kind of give you some context. And then Michelle decided, oh yeah, I'm going to actually do it again. Like, how cool, what a fun strategy to make up the difference in the weird market and still give somebody a really good deal and help out a community member, which the person who's about to buy this property, and actually we should probably not put her information. Anyway, the person that's about to buy this property is beautiful. She is so excited, and there's no way she'd be able to buy this home if Michelle and Ryan weren't able to offer these terms. There's no way they'd fit in a traditional seller fight or a traditional buying box. Unfortunately, her husband passed away recently. She has a young disabled son. Like, she is left with really no options to qualify to buy a home, and she needs to be in a good, safe neighborhood. This is a big deal to be able to offer this to someone. So they're very excited to be able to do this for somebody in the community, right? And still offer awesome, terms. Go ahead, Mitch.
Okay, so let's talk about this. So we see some options there in section 1, credit to be used, credit document to be used. So this is how the title of the property is transferred. Okay, and as real estate investors, the most important thing, even more important than what we own, is what we control. Because what we control pays us money. One of the examples I'll use is Maeli's first deal. She leased a property, hosted an Airbnb out of the property that she leased, and made money. Is that real estate investing? Absolutely it is, right? Because even though she didn't own the property, she still was using real estate to make her cash flow, right? So more important than what we own is what we control. Now, let's go over each of these. So Michelle, our student, bought this property with a note and all-inclusive trust deed. So that is an instrument. That's a title transferring instrument. So title, whoever's on title owns the property, right? Whoever's on title controls the property. So that is an instrument that allows Michelle to take title without releasing the previous mortgage. So Michelle bought this property using the previous owner's mortgage. How cool is that, right? And it was because the previous owner was behind on payments. Michelle brought a little bit of cash to the table, caught him up on payments, and then negotiated that she was able to use their mortgage to continue to finance this property. And so the note part is the loan. So the note is the loan that was written up that is due to the previous owner because they're using their mortgage, right? Which basically services their mortgage. The all-inclusive trust deed is the instrument that transfers title to Michelle without releasing the previous mortgage. Now, let's say that property were paid off. We don't need an all-inclusive trust deed. We just need a deed of trust, right? Or a trust deed. So if the property was paid off and the owner's like, yeah, I'll sell it to you over time, that's fine, just make me payments, right? Then we'd use note and deed of trust. That also transfers the title to Michelle. And the note part is the loan, right? How the loan's written up, that Michelle will pay them back X amount plus interest over time at X amount dollars per month. So that wasn't the case in this property, but Michelle bought it with a note and all-inclusive trust deed. Now, if we want control of the property, we want the title. We want the deed, right? So there's one other box on here, contract for deed. Here's how contract for deed works. You have a contract in place first. A contract that says you will pay me X amount per month, every single month, until this is paid off, right? Until the $435,000 that you're buying this house for is paid in full. And once you finish paying in full, then contractually, I will transfer the deed to you. So a contract for deed means that the buyer doesn't actually get the deed until the note's paid for in full. So let's step into Michelle's shoes for just a moment. Michelle's wanting to keep control of the property. She purchased it on seller financing with an all-inclusive deed of trust. That means she has the title. But now she wants to turn around and sell it on seller financing for more than what she bought it for, and she's going to make the difference every month. But Michelle wants control. So if she's buying it, she wants an all-inclusive trust deed. That gives her control. That gives her the deed. But if she's selling it, what gives her the most control? I want to hear your guys' thoughts. What instrument should she use if she's selling it as an investor?
Would it be contract for deed?
Contract for deed. Yes, absolutely. Because that means that Michelle gets to keep the deed until the note is paid in full, and then she's contractually obligated to transfer that deed. So this is an offer from a buyer that wants to buy this property on seller financing from Michelle, but their offer said, we want a note and an all-inclusive trust deed, so we're going to counter. We're going to counter with, Scott, you nailed it, a contract for deed, because that leaves Michelle in control. Any questions around that? Awesome. All right, Maeli, take it away.
Yeah, well, and so it gets a little bit even more tricky on this specific one. it would be a contract for deed. The issue, so let's back up a little bit. The original contract was the original property that was for sale. It was an FHA loan. Now, for all of you that are wanting to start doing some wholesaling, if you see that it's an FHA, a lot of times in the past, we would tell all of our students, just run. Don't even bother. There's plenty of other deals out there. It's just really not worth your time because there's so many of this that's going to take place where it's like, whoa, like there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of work to make it feel and look as clean as it needs to without triggering the loan to come due, right? The note to be called. And so, but in this case, it was unique. Jared Brenchley was like, well, I think I can still pull this off and make it a win-win for everyone. Because he was really trying to help the seller out of a really nasty situation. And so obviously Jared is very motivated to do whatever he possibly can to get this property sold for them. And so anyway, he worked with title and he worked with Jeff and with the law and said, okay, we're going to create a trust. Okay, so the home got put inside of a trust, and then Michelle actually bought the trust. Okay, hopefully this is getting not too complicated. This is a very next level type thing, so hopefully this isn't like too much. Feel free to stop me at any time. The original home, right, got put inside of a trust, then Michelle bought the trust. So that, and this is why, so that the FHA does not go, what's going on? FHA is very notorious for calling notes due. They are greedy little poops. And part of it is because, well, they gave such a good deal. They don't want everyone to have a good deal. They are very sticky with who they qualify for as an FHA loan. That person didn't have to put very much down. That person, there's all these rules and regulations. And so rightfully so, to be honest, they're saying, no. If you don't qualify for an FHA loan, you don't get an FHA loan. I get it. There's nothing wrong with the way they create their rules. It's just simply, it is what it is. So the workaround on this is simply just saying, okay, we're going to put the trust, we're going to have the property get put inside of a trust, then we're going to sell the trust. Now title doesn't change. I mean, it does. It looks like it got changed, but the title name is that of the address. So that's the title name. It looks like the family went, oh, we need a trust. Of course you do. Everyone needs a trust. And so now there are no red flags. FHA won't be, they're not going to be like, oh, what's going on? Like, they're not going to panic. The issue is now she's about to do it again. What happens, and this is just an open context, so please feel free to jump in here. What happens if Michelle sells the trust again? What happens? She's about to sell the trust. We talked about contract for deed. Anyone want to chime in here?
Well, if she sells the trust, technically, trusts aren't recorded anywhere. So FHA has no way of seeing, like, it's not recorded on title, right? Because the trust is what owns the title. So if she sells the trust, it just happens at an attorney's office, and there's some paperwork that everybody puts in their filing cabinet and never goes anywhere.
Bingo. Okay, and that's what we're looking for. The last thing, and this is so crucial, guys, like this should be your biggest takeaway out of everything we're going to talk about tonight. It's how you structure deals that create wealth. It's how you structure them. It's not about all this amazing, like, oh, I have all the money. It's not how much money you make, it's how and what you do with your money, right? Like, we're starting to learn this. We're changing our behavior. We're changing our mindset. We're changing the way we think about things. This is legit the number one thing that you should be taking away from this. It's we could have just accepted this. And if I was just a traditional agent, that's what I would have done. I would have been like, oh yeah, this looks perfect. I would have been like, this is how normal agents behave and or people doing real estate investing. Be like, yeah, a no all-inclusive deed of trust. That makes perfect sense. He filled that out the best of his knowledge. Absolutely. That makes sense to him. But in our case, is that going to make sense? The answer is no, it's not, because then my client has zero protection and they're buying the trust. So it can't, there's a spot down here, see where it talks about insurance. So lenders, title insurance, that's not it. It is title insurance. Property inspection requires note of default, property tax, hazardous insurance, lenders, title insurance. Okay, title insurance. So title insurance. Buyer shall purchase a lender's policy of title insurance in order to protect the lender. Seller who is extending a seller financing loan to the buyer recommended. That's a red flag. This can't happen. The reason why this can't happen is the moment there's title insurance on the trust, right? All of a sudden, that's recorded. That's showing up. And the FHA will be able to look in, and they're notorious, like I said, for looking. Most big banks, they could care less. Chase, sorry. Wells Fargo, probably not. They're not going in and scouring the your title companies and verifying. They're not paying for this. They're not verifying that everyone, they just care that the bills are being paid. Like, that's what they're in business for. But for whatever reason, actually, I know the reason. Let's think about it. You're out on a loan for 2.9, right? They could easily have foreclosed on this house had the lady not been taken care of by Michelle stepping in, and foreclosed on them and then repurpose the loan for 7% interest. Don't you think they want to capitalize on the interest rate? Obviously, that's a yes, right? And so being that that's the case, this is what is not going to fly. Titles insurance is not going to happen on this property. So the person who is going to buy this home has to be willing to close, not at title, but actually through a lawyer, and only through a lawyer. This is a very unique strategy. I actually, now that I'm going all the way through it and been both sides of the story, I don't know that I would put one of my students through this again. I'll be very blankly honest. This overall looked like a cool opportunity because the money is there. I mean, she's going to be making, or they're going to be cash flowing like $600 to $800 a month, not having to do anything, like anything at all. Fan-freaking-tastic. However, is the liability a little high? I feel like it would be more than I would want. Luckily, she's super savvy. She's, an incredible banker. She gets all this kind of stuff. But if you were brand new, I don't know that this would be the strategy that I would be like, yes, this would be what I'd want you to, your first deal to structure it like this. I don't know that I would do that again. Just saying. But how cool that their payment is about $2,400. Her payment on the current mortgage that she's paying, she's locked in at 3.45% interest. And so because of that, they're cash flowing about $600 a month. Super awesome. So it's good until it's not, right? Anyway, any other questions? It's all should. We did do a due on sale clause. Everyone know what that means? You're better explaining that than I am, Beb.
Can you explain it?
Sure, absolutely.
So due on sale means if they sell the property for whatever reason, they can't do the same strategy we're doing. They can't stack another seller finance on the back end. So if they sell the property for whatever reason, the note is due in full.
Which, is smart. I would always put that on there, right? It's just like, no, we're not doing this.
We also did, that brings up another thing. We also did a deed in lieu of foreclosure. So the foreclosure process and the laws around foreclosure protect the borrower. So if they sign a deed in lieu of foreclosure, that means they're waiving their rights in advance to foreclosure. If they, which if we put this into foreclosure, it would send a red flag to the underlying bank, right? So they signed a deed in lieu foreclosure saying, hey, we're pre-waiving our rights to foreclosure. If we default, we will just give you the keys back.
Actually, it looks like it's not on here, so I'm making a note of, I swear they signed that, and I don't see it now that I'm going through. I don't see it. I just see the due on sale clause, but I don't see the
deed in lieu.
Usually, I mean, it's on the other seller finance addendum, like right up front on our Utah Rep C one, but I don't see it even on here. So that is a good catch that obviously an attorney would catch as we're going through this. So the reason why we didn't, like I said, sign it off on this today is because we were going to have to do a counter. And the counter, so how it works, and let me just break this down real quick, and then we'll just open it up for questions, and then this will be done. This is super quick, super easy. It's only 3 documents, super, super clean. So how it works, just to kind of streamline this really fast. If there's a property you like, and you're like, ooh, the numbers could totally work, you write a Rep C. You submit the Rep C. And if you're like, hey, I want this to be a seller finance deal or a subject to deal, this is how this property would work for me and my numbers, then you're going to attach this addendum to it. You're going to stack it on top of it and submit the offer together, right? Simultaneously. And then that's done. And then you call up the agent and let them know, right? Like, hey, I just submitted this offer. Let me know if you have any questions. They're going to, because they're probably clueless. They have no idea what seller financing is. And then that's when you bring in an expert, right? You can bring in myself, you can bring in Mitch, you can bring in Jax Petty, who does a ton of seller financing here in Utah. You can bring in Jeff Braylio. I mean, there's a lot of resources for you.
To be clear, we're not lawyers.
No.
If you need a legal expert, that's not us.
Yeah, no. We're not doing that. But we can obviously help you through addendums, right? That's our job. So you submit the offer, and then they're like, well, we don't really know how this all goes down. That's where having communication is super helpful, because it's okay to not know, right? What is not okay is to pretend like you have a clue about these seller financing addendums and then mark all the wrong things, right? Because here, assumption of FHA that needs to be there. I mean, he doesn't know what he doesn't know. And so because somebody doesn't know what they're doing, it causes this, oh, well, if I accept this, now I personally, if I let my buyer accept this Rep C and this seller finance clause, or my addendum, they're subject to stick to, I can't change on my buyer's side, or excuse me, on my seller's side. Once we've signed on this dotted line, we can't amend this contract whatsoever. The buyers can, throughout the entire process. They can, right? They can change their mind 100 times on how they want the contract to look like and what they're willing to do up until the due diligence timeline, and get their earnest money back and pretend like it's never happened. All the ball is in their court the whole time, realistically. And that's the problem with, uneducated agents and or investors. If you don't know what you're up against, you're signing off on a lot of things that you might not know the answers to. And so instead of pretending like let's just reach out to somebody that has a clue. I was that person today. I went, this is above my pay grade. Like, I've never been through something like this, which is rare, but this is unique. And anytime something very unique comes across my desk, the first thing that I do isn't, I'll just wing it and pretend like I can feel that, like I know exactly how to structure this. The answer is I don't. So, right, Mitch and I were actually on the phone all day, calling different people to verify what we think is accurate, but then also to get their point of view. Actually, this was yesterday, not today, but I was on the phone with Jax today. But, making sure that we're doing the right thing for our clients and or for ourselves is very important, because I pretend like this would be me doing this deal. That's how I want it to be. That's how I want it to feel for you as one of my clients, but also for one of our students. And like, if I wouldn't do the deal, I'm sure the heck, uh, I'm sure you wouldn't either, is the case. Everybody's like, this feels really like, whoa to me. We're going to get legal advice on this. Let's button this up to make it look really clean, really pretty, so that there's no question that there are issues with this contract. Yes, there are issues, but I'm not exactly sure how to solve the problem yet. Think I do. Think I've gotten the answer, which is basically a contract for deed, right? Like that is the answer, and it does seem to solve the problems. And then obviously we do need to do a deed in lieu of foreclosure, which I thought already had, but they agreed to it verbally, but obviously not contractually, and that's something that you always need to verify. So keep that in mind, that even though I've been doing this for a long time, I still don't know how to necessarily structure this in a way that's going to protect my client and then the original seller as well. Like,
And honestly, that's almost every deal. I mean, there's something on every deal where it's like, huh, I need to figure that out, right? Every deal there's some sort of learning experience where it's like, I need to consult my education, or I need to call my mentor, or I need to reach out to an attorney or an accountant, and don't hesitate. At no point should you ever feel like, I got all this stuff, I don't need to ask anybody anything, right? That's why we have a community. That's why we build a community, is so that we've got various people with different experiences that can come together in a mastermind. I mean, one of my, I think kind of the student that we talk about quite often, Dane Clark, very successful kid, started out as one of our students. I call Dane now on some stuff, and I'm like, hey, that deal you were telling me, how'd you structure that? Like, I'm struggling here. I'm trying to figure out, how to structure this one, and I remember you said this, and, what'd you do? I'm calling students sometimes now, that have a lot of experience. So don't hesitate, it's not a pride thing. Just reach out to somebody who you think knows and find the answers if you don't know. If you make a guess, you're gambling, and investing is not gambling.
No. And a side note to this, so we've had a few more students actually put some contracts, or put some offer, they've been doing the homework, they've been putting all the offers out recently, and they went under contract. And something that they did was not verify their comps with me or my team before they put an offer. And more importantly, before they said, oh, we're going down this entire rabbit hole, building out the wholesale campaign, doing all the work. Because here's the thing, I do want you to use Renatus iOS. I do want you to use all your resources you possibly can to determine your ARV, your purchase price, all the addendum, right? Put everything together. If it's a seller financing addendum, perfect. I love that. Do all of that work first. Submit it, handle it, and then so it goes under contract. I love that. It goes under contract. Immediately be like, Maeli, this just went under contract. I need to verify my numbers. Because you don't want to look stupid, right? I mean, at the end of the day, like, that's why you're educated, is so you don't look stupid. You're going to still feel stupid, just so you know. We all feel stupid in the beginning because we're not good at things we haven't done before. And until you have done 1,000 of these, then all of a sudden you get a little more confident. But anyway, so there's just some properties that are super hard to comp, and some properties, no matter what platform you're on, unless you are actually logged into your MLS platform, you're not going to get a good comp. It's just the way it is. And so I luckily recently, I've had, two new mentors join my real estate team as well. So if you're an agent and you're like, ooh, I want to be a mentor, or ooh, I want to learn how to start doing these really cool contracts and structuring all these deals and learning how to actually run numbers and learn how to run ARVs, feel free to reach out to me. Obviously, I'd love to help out. But because I do have a few new mentees, they need practice. They do. They need practice running ARVs. And so they're not going to be super quick at them. So if you have like a timeline where you're like, I need to know by tomorrow, obviously it might not happen like that in the beginning. But this is a good way for everyone to start getting practice, and let's leverage each other's strengths and resources to facilitate these things. Okay?
Love it.
That's all I'm
We've
gonna
got
say
about
that.
5 minutes, and then let's open up to questions.
I mean, that's all I had. So
Sweet, it's question time.
yeah.
I love it. All right, y'all. So I know some of you reached out to me and was like, "This is like way over my head," and I get it. Like this is how we need to be doing real estate right now. Like this is in this market, with the market climate we're in. This is how we should be acquiring properties. In a lot of cases, this is how you may need to sell one of your properties. So even if you're 90% lost on this, let's ask some questions. So let's open up the questions. The time is yours. We'll take as long as you guys keep asking them. We'll keep answering them. So come off mute. Let us know what you're thinking. Any questions along the way here?
Actually,
I have a question.
yeah. Go
Sorry.
ahead.
Yeah, Scott.
So I'm obviously very new to this, but if you're approaching like a homeowner and you're trying to work out a seller finance with them, am I filling out a rep C and presenting it to the homeowner? These are our terms. This is what I want to do.
Yes, at a certain point, I would say, starting out, I'd talk through it with them verbally before you waste the time. Because here's the thing, Scott, your success is going to be predicated on the volume of leads that you can go through.
Right.
So if you're spending time, so we need to be on purpose about the order that we do things in. If you find a deal and you're like, sweet, I'm going to drive to it. It's a half hour away from my house, right? So now you've spent an hour driving there and back. Okay, cool. I'm going to run the numbers. I'm going to pull comps. That takes you another hour. Now you spent 3 hours on it. Okay, cool. I'm going to put an offer together, right? And then you spend another hour. Now you spent 4 hours on the deal. And then you take the offer to the homeowner and they're like, I'm not even interested in selling my house.
Yeah.
Well, how could we have gone about that in a different order that would have saved us time? Well, we could have called them and said, hey, I'm interested in your house. Are you interested in an offer? And they would have said no, and then we spent 30 seconds on it, not 4 hours, right? So doing things in the right order is important. We have to, we have to be able to maximize our time so that we're spending, if we can get a no in 30 seconds, let's get the no in 30 seconds, not 4 hours, right? Because then we can go, through infinitely more deals that way, or infinitely more leads that way. Ask if they're open to receiving an offer. If they say yes, run the numbers. If the numbers work, then write the offer. And I would even call them if the numbers work, call them. If they don't work, don't call them back. But if the numbers do work, call them and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking. You open to that? And they say yes, say great, I'll write it up, right? So we're checking in along the way to make sure that we're on the right track here and that we're not wasting time.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That's great. And so what I suggest you to do, and exactly what Mitch said, basically it's, you're sending over an offer, but it's more of what's the verbiage there?
Verbal?
No, it's
Informal? Letter of intent?
Letter of intent.
I'm only helping.
Yep. So a letter of intent. So, if you send over a letter of intent to me, I really appreciate it. I love letter of intents. That makes me so happy. I know your vision. I know what you're trying to accomplish. I understand who you are and what you're doing. Like, that makes me so happy. If I see a letter of intent coming across my desk from one of the properties that I have listed, I'm like, I love this person. I love this agent. Because having to do 1,000 addendums, I've actually gotten up to 45 addendums before on a contract on one property. Like, it saves so much headache for just the back and forth, but not, minutia of having to be like, well, now it's this, and actually we're going to agree to this. And if we would have just had an open form communication before we chose to send contracts over, all of that would have been mitigated for the most part, right? There's things that come up along the way. So, 3 or 4 addendums, maybe 6 is pretty normal. But I will say after 6, that means that there was a lot of things that probably could have happened prior to submitting an offer. Like a lot of things that should have happened, right? So I will say that the seller financing calculator, if you don't have it, definitely get it. It's in your education. It's download it, right? It's so amazing.
It's in Brian
If
Sump's
you
AIT class, Seller Finance and Subject to.
hit download, watch the class, and then hit download. This is what I live and breathe by right now in today's market. This is absolutely how I create my letter of intents, right? And so what I do is I just simply say, if I'm making an offer, right, or any of the people that are writing offers for me, I'm like, all I do is say, hey, would you be open to receiving purchase price, the down payment, the loan amount would be then this, your interest rate would be this, this is a seller finance, subject to deal that I'm offering you. The term would be this. What I'm changing this, right? I can change any of this to make sense. The only thing I really care about for me on when I'm making offers is the payment. Because I ran numbers verifying that I can rent out this property. And if I can't rent it out for more than $2,600, I'm not doing this deal. Actually, $2,800. I wouldn't do this deal. Right? And so that's where I would need my payment would be $23.98 if I knew I could rent this out for about $3,000 a month. I'd be like, okay, yeah, I could offer you a payment of $2,300 a month, $23.98. The balloon negotiable, right? All these levers are negotiable, and that's what's so sexy about seller financing is that there's so many things you can manipulate to get you exactly what you're looking for. Most people don't know that. You're running circles around them. If they agree to potentially hearing an offer from you, that's when you get to start your magic. And that's when you get to have these amazing conversations of, okay, cool, guess what? I'm able to manipulate 5 levers, 5 different things to make this deal work for me. Would you be open to looking at what those would look like, right? They're like, okay, I don't know what that means. And then I'll pull up this calculator with them. I'm like, let's have some fun. Like, I have being transparent with the buyer, I am all about it. Because then they see it's like, we're not adding fluff here. It's not like, it's just numbers. It's just situational. It's just how it works. It's just how the amortization schedule works. It's how everything goes down. There is no fluff here whatsoever. I love how this works. And then they can put their actual numbers in too. And everything makes them feel like, dang, I was selling my house. I sold Michelle in this case. She's selling her house for $435. In 9 years, she's actually going to make $462. That's awesome, right? What's my rate of return? Well, let's see. 6%? No, that's not right. Oh, I don't have all this filled out. That's why. So if I knew this information, which I don't off the top of my head, this information would be accurate, I would get a rate of return. And usually that rate of return is something crazy like 23%. That's a no-brainer. Of course she's going to make that decision. And then, so, of course, the person that you're trying to make the offer to is going to say yes. Because this number is what they're saying yes to. They're like, wait, what? Anyway, there's my tangent.
So what are the benefits to a seller, to the buyer with this type of deal versus just getting a regular 15 or 30 year mortgage? Are these mostly buyers that wouldn't be able to, or what benefits are there for the buyer?
Yes, that is a really good question, and it's been a while since I've showed this. Let's see here. I've shown this for a while. Workbook. LOI. I know I have it right here. Oh, maybe it's shared in my other folder. It probably is. Let me just go to.
So while you're looking for that, I can kind of speak to this question
Please
a little
do.
bit. So the benefits to the buyer by buying on seller financing is in the banks have like a specific criteria of what they're looking for in a borrower. And that criteria can be a little stringent. For example, if you're a business owner, it's harder to buy a home. It's harder to get a mortgage, right? If you've got anything outside of a W-2 job and you make enough money and your credit score is good enough, then you could fit in that little box that they have and take advantage of very few options. You're on their amortization schedule, you're at their dictated interest rate, all those things. With seller financing, your bank is the seller, so it's more negotiable. The seller
Gotcha.
can decide, hey, I trust this person or I don't, based on the criteria that the seller chooses. And so, an entrepreneur coming in and is like, hey, I don't have 2 years of tax returns, but, I can show you my bank account. I can put a ton of money down. My credit score is amazing. Bank said no because I don't have 2 years of tax returns. But, here's reasons why I think you should let me buy this from you over time. The seller could be like, yeah, totally. Let's do it.
Gotcha. So you could get some really good buyers, solid buyers with this that wouldn't otherwise be able to. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great question. And you know what, guys, we're going into a crazy market for commercial. Commercial real estate is an even better way. I mean, they get it. They get seller financing. They get subject to. They're more inclined to say yes to you on commercial deals too. So don't put blindfolds on and be like, oh, this is only for single family. Absolutely not. Mitch's first 16-plex that he bought was on seller financing, right? Like he bought it for $100,000, a 16-plex. Yeah. How awesome. Like we all should be doing that. And part of it is just recognizing the key behind all of this, right? The key behind everything that we do. There should be two really big takeaways that you should get, which is understand why they're selling. We shouldn't be making offers unless we know why they're selling. We really shouldn't be. We should be on the phone asking them, hey, looks like you have a house for sale. Looks like your client has a house for sale. It looks like the home's been listed for 108 days. Why are you selling? Like, oh, well, my client's got to move to Idaho, or I need to move back home, blah, 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 blah. Okay, cool. If you can't sell by X date, how is that going to affect your life? If they say, well, I mean, I just rework or I do this or, whatever, if it's not really a big deal to them and they're like, meh, probably they're not going to be somebody that's willing to negotiate with you. But if they say, honestly, if I don't sell this house within, the next month, there's going to be some serious problems. I don't know if I'm going to be able to handle them. Now your ears should perk up. Now you should be going, okay, great news. I am an expert at solving problems. That is all I do. And I don't know how to solve this problem just yet. But if you're willing to work with me, I'm pretty sure we can solve this problem. And then figure out what the problem is, why it hasn't sold. Figure out what are they needing out of the deal, right? We talk about this so often, but that is the issue. We're solving people's problems. That is the key to all sales, is solving the problem. If they're like, well, I need to move because I need to be back to my grandparents or my mom and dad, they're not doing well, right? That's this last deal that I was just doing. The grandparent or her mom and dad wasn't doing well. She wanted to move home so she'd be closer to mom and dad because she feels guilty that she's so far away. She wants to be able to be there and aid for them. And then, right, I go, okay, how terrible are you going to feel if you can't be there for their last 5 years, the last 2 years, the last year of their life? Wait for them to respond. Wait. Don't speak. And make them conjure up these hard feelings, right? And people will bawl all the time on the calls with me, and it's fine. Let them do what they need to do to solve their own problem, because that's what they're gonna do, right? All we're doing is we're just here to write down numbers and to be like, oh, I think I know how to solve this problem, right? And to be there for them when they finally come up with what is their problem. So all we're doing is continue to keep asking questions so that we can get them to answer their own problem. And usually it's, I need to sell my car, or I need to get my debt down to this so that I can buy this, or I need to, right? There's always something that they need to do. And for us, that's fantastic, because on the last seller finance call we did, it was with Jared Brenchley, and he talked about how the only thing that the guy needed to sell the house to Jared was for Jared to buy his car. Because if he didn't have a car payment, then he could technically be financially free to move and go live his new life in Florida that he wanted to do. So Jared wrote him a check for $17,000, and now this, guy doesn't have a $500 payment or whatever it was per month. And now that's all it took was $500 a month, right? For him to be like, oh, that's all I needed. He bought a house for $17,000 because he figured out exactly what the guy needed. That's it. So cool. I love it. Let's see.
I have another question.
Please.
So with a seller finance, the seller, let's say I write a deal with a seller, and because they're in trouble for whatever reason, and they go move somewhere else. And so I've got this property now that I'm renting out or whatever. This is hypothetical, obviously. What if that seller is wanting to buy a house again in a few years down the road, but we're on the title, but they still have a mortgage, right, with the bank?
Yeah.
So what happens at that point?
So there's two things that I do suggest. Well, there's multiple things, but Mitch will probably chime in here too. But two things that I will suggest. One, be in good relationships with the person that you go into this with. This is a relationship, right? That's why you care about them. That's why you're really wanting to solve these problems, and you're really wanting to be there for them, because this isn't a get rich quick type scheme. You're not trying to hurt these people, right? We're actually trying to do good here. And because we're doing good, we want to be in a relationship. We want to check in. We want to send them a Christmas card every year, right? We want to check in with them and verify they're doing well. Hey, just checking in. If I have a 9-year balloon on this, mentally, I need to know that if they do clean up their finances, I will say the history repeats itself. Most of the time, if you look at tax data, it shows notice of default. They got a forbearance, they got something, they did a refinance, the bank said, fine, we'll do this, then this. We won't foreclose on you, we'll adjust. Then, notice of default happens again 6 months later. They do some type of workaround, the bank's trying to be super forgiving and understanding, and then it happens again. And by the third time, the bank's like, I don't know what to tell you, but figure out your life. Like, this isn't working, right? Like, whatever you're doing isn't working. And so, because history repeats itself, I will say you're not going to struggle with this as often as you might think, but don't get, super excited and like, oh, I'm never going to have to deal with this, because if somebody's always in a struggle, they're never going to be able to qualify for a mortgage again. That's not the case, because sometimes it could be a health-related issue, right? If it's a health-related issue and then it gets resolved and then they can go back to work and their life can go back to as normal as it possibly can, that does create a problem. That means that they could maybe 4 or 5 years qualify for a traditional lending, type of scenario. I also think that you could suggest them to buy a house on seller financing, right? Like, you could get creative and be like, you know what? I know it's like, that's why checking in once a year, maybe, right? Or whatever. Be like, hey, how are you guys? Are you getting close? Are you wanting this off of your credit? Or is this good for you? Right? Is this still great that I'm paying this mortgage every month and that, I'm just building your credit up? Is this still good for you? And if they're like, oh no, this is terrible, I'm trying to buy my own house and blah, 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 then you can be like, okay, well, sounds like I need to buy this from you. Or you can be like, oh my gosh, great news. I have an incredible agent named Maeli. She'll help you find a house on seller finance. Right? I mean, you can be creative on how you redo this, but it is a great question that you're asking. Mitch likes to do less than 5 years on his terms for a reason, and that's why.
I like to do 5 years.
Like less than 5 is what I said.
Yeah. I mean, I like 5.
Yeah.
Right at 5, not less, not more. And part of that's because of the maintenance cycle on properties as well. If you're renting it out, Scott, like, eventually you're going to have to replace a roof, and you're going to have to replace an air conditioner and a furnace, and there goes all your cash flow, right? So buy the house, build equity for 5 years, sell it, make a profit, 1031 into 2 other properties that you do the same thing on, and then in 5 years down the road, sell those. Make sure that your 5 years that you plan on holding that specific property, that you're not going to have any major, like, furnace looks good, the air conditioner looks good, the roof looks good, water heater looks good for 5 years. Then sell those and, sell those 2 properties and then go buy 4 properties with the increased profit and appreciation and the cash flow that you made. And this is a great way in 1031. So you're deferring the taxes into the next deals. And you can do that indefinitely until you die. But this is a great way to prevent those types of, because when we come in and we solve their problems and we pull them out of foreclosure and save their credit, we're their angels. But then 3 years later when their credit's good, or 5 years later when their credit's good and they want to go buy a house, well, now we're not their angels anymore. Now we're their anchors, right? We're their albatross. So kind of plan that into your plan. There's multiple reasons why buying a single family house and holding on to it for 100 years is a bad idea. This just adds to it if you're in this situation. So just plan on turning it over every 5 to 10 years. Keep the capital in a deal of some kind, but it doesn't have to be the same deal. Just rotate it into a new deal, right?
Yeah. Yeah, perfect.
Good
That's
question.
really good advice. Hey, let me ask, what kind of provisions do y'all make or are in the contract for the seller? Like, how does the seller not get worried about you not paying the payments?
Good question.
Want me to take that one?
I know. Sure.
Yeah. So if that comes up, we can always offer them a deed in lieu of foreclosure, which means if we go into default, then they just automatically get the house back.
Oh yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yep. And that way.
That is the number one question. I mean, it is.
Yep.
Yeah, I forget about getting the house back, but yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I usually educate the person as to, hey, look, if that happens, then A, you're in the same spot you are now. We've just kicked the can down the road, right? So you're no worse off, right? It's not like we put you in a worse situation. It's not going to happen because I'm giving you 30 grand down and I'm going to be paying your mortgage payment, at $3,000 a month for the next 5 years. So I'm not going to walk away from that money. But we can put this document in. Deed of lieu of foreclosure says that if we're in default, go past 90 days without paying, that you just automatically get the house back and we waive our right to foreclosure. And that always makes them feel good, and I'm fine putting it in there because I'm not planning on defaulting. So,
right, yeah, you paid all that time for nothing.
Yep.
If you did.
Yep,
okay,
exactly.
that makes sense. Thank you so much.
It's a safety mechanism that you can offer them for the feel goods, right? It's a comfort blanket.
Definitely. Thank you.
Got it.
In this case, like, staying in communication is super helpful too because of that reason. Like, if there was something where all of a sudden I was in a bad situation and I couldn't make that mortgage payment, how great to be able to talk to them and just be like, hey, just so you know, it's not my intention here. This just happened. Da 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 da. Are you willing to work with me still? Right? Like, having that communication, I feel like, is amazing. Like, we have communication with pretty much all of our, there's a couple we don't, but like, that's so nice. Because they can also tell us, like, what if, unfortunately, this happens, if you don't have a good escrow specialist or someone like escrow specialists, sometimes they screw up stuff. Like, they do. And if the buyer doesn't tell you, or the seller doesn't tell you that the payment didn't get there on time, like, now you look like you're in default, even though really it wasn't your fault. They just didn't do their job, potentially. Like, there's a lot of little weird things that can happen, luckily. Doesn't happen very often, right? It doesn't, but it can. And so having that phone number of theirs is super important. I feel like that should never not be on the table. Like, you should be able to call that person anytime you want to, and vice versa. There should be an open communication, so that, because communication solves all problems. We know this. What the issues arise is when somebody feels like someone's doing something to hurt them and there's no communication. Just communicate.
Yeah, that's smart. Very smart.
Yeah. Good.
All right, guys. Well, that's all the time we have for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. We will be back next week with Jeff Griffin on some awesome mindset content. So make sure you join us then. Mark your calendars now at 7 p.m. Mountain Time every single Wednesday. Now, with the exception of the Wednesday, the 28th of December, between Christmas and New Year's this year. But with that exception only, set it on repeat, set an alarm. We want you here We've got some awesome content for you every week. In the meantime, go out and do some real estate. Stay hungry, stay healthy, stay happy. We love you all, and we're very grateful for you. And we'll see you on the flip side. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.